Okay, can you hear me?
Oh, yep. Now I can.
Okay, good. Sorry, I'm on a different computer today because my good computer had some issues with the keyboard and Apple kept it for like a week to fix it.
Oh
So now
no.
I'm using our old computer that is so slow. I was like, is it going to be fast enough to do a Zoom meeting?
Oh
So
no.
if for any reason we do die out, I have my handy dandy phone and I can hurry and hop on the call there. So if I do die, just know I'll hurry and hop on the
Okay.
phone. So, all right. So how are you?
Pretty good.
Good. Let me make sure this is recording. It is. Okay, good. Good. All right. Tell me about your week.
Um, let's see. How was my week? I think it was pretty good. Dawson came back from his trip and we had a really good conversation, so that was good.
Good. Good.
And what's that?
Just a generally good conversation, or was it like emotionally helpful for you?
Um, Maybe both. Like he just seemed more open about what happened and more of his plan because he's been so closed off about not telling us anything.
Ah,
I felt like he opened up a little bit more and
good.
shared more, which was nice.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good.
And I feel like since then we've been able to talk a little bit more, openly about things.
Okay, good.
And he is moving out. He says he's moving out on Saturday, so we'll see.
This week, huh?
Mhm.
Okay, how you feel about that?
I feel good. Yeah, I think we'll have a better relationship when he's gone.
It
Like,
is amazing how just them having some space is good for everyone.
hmm
Yeah.
yeah. Like this morning, I wanted to kill him, so he can go.
Both of you will be glad when he gets to
Yeah,
make all his own decisions and pay all the consequences of those decisions.
yeah, exactly.
Okay, good. Good. What about the rest of your week?
Pretty good. My mother-in-law is doing so well. It's really crazy. It's like
Wow.
this roller coaster of what is happening, like I
Wow.
don't know. My sister-in-law and I just started just like, what is happening? I don't know. I guess it's kind of like AA, just one day at a time.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. And you
Yeah.
kind of hope that, it's like let it stay good until it's just suddenly bad. Like
Yeah.
let it stay good until it's over, Surprise
Yeah.
us one day and have it be done.
Yeah. That's what she wants. That would be nice.
Yeah, yeah, I totally get that. Well, good. What about the things that you were going to work on last week? I have that you were going to commit to journaling about your feelings and thoughts about not having your needs met and when to have an appropriate conversation with Derek.
I I journaled about it, but I haven't talked to him.
Okay. So what did you learn in the journaling process?
It was more of what I want to say to him. So I got, after we talked and you gave me some ideas, I kind of just wrote it all out. So I kind of know what I want to talk about and what I want to say.
That's good.
Yeah.
How did just that process affect you?
It felt really good. And then the next few days were good. I was like, oh, maybe I don't need to talk to him, but I know I still do. But we had a few good days. And then yesterday again, it was just like crying and
So you had more peace through the week dealing with it, but Sunday was still
yeah,
difficult.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So I actually thought about talking to him yesterday, but then I had a breakdown and then I was just too emotional and it just wasn't the right timing.
I think timing is really important.
Yeah.
It's also one of the hardest things for me to do because when you're upset, you want that pain to just stop. And so
Yeah.
you think if you approach it and deal with it right then, it will stop. But what
Yeah.
I've learned for myself anyway is that I tend to make it worse. And so then I dig myself in even deeper. And instead of dealing with the actual issues in a way that's productive, I end up causing problems that now the real issues get put aside, and now it's all about how I reacted to stuff.
Yeah.
So I think you're smart to just say, okay, let me do this when it's a good time.
Yeah.
And, you know, let's face it, this is a problem that's not going away overnight.
Right.
So it's going to be a process of you guys learning to come to terms with your new life right now.
Yeah.
We got a new state presidency yesterday. And so the area president was there, and he gave some really good advice out loud. He said, this is what I'm going to talk to them about when I meet with them. He said, I tell them to use your calling as a way to develop yourself as a better husband and father. And he says, if I interview you at the end of your calling and you have done that, then I will consider everything you did a success. If you failed at that, it won't matter what else you accomplished. And I was like, oh, that's powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. But boy, that's a process for everybody, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Which I'm sure is why he has to give that advice, because
Yeah.
it is a major common problem that
Yeah.
this is normal. So,
Yeah.
all right, good. Okay, so are there other things you wanted to talk about today besides some of the chapters?
Nope.
Okay. Well, let's take a look. There was a lot more material in here than the pages look like, isn't there? I was like I was making all these notes. I'm like, whoa, okay. I thought this was like a quick summary thing, but it's a lot more. So we just talk about whatever we want to in here. And if we have more to talk about next week, fine. So we have let's start with the epilogue. Let's see, that's on, should have put what page it is, 298. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, 298. And let's see. So I think it was interesting. I think from now on, it's kind of perfect timing that this is technically the first day of the next 6 months, which, by the way, I still need to send you the survey. And we'll make it kind of like the end of last one, the beginning of this one. And so sorry, I realized the other day, I was like, oh my gosh, I did never send that to her. So I apologize. But it'd be kind of fun to see how that goes. But I think from now on, I'd like to make sure that people look at this this epilogue and the Appendix A before they start, because I think it is such a good summary of what you need to know, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so starting just at the beginning, you know, where it talks about living in the world of dieting doesn't work emotionally, physically, or spiritually, right? That's just like the big overall thing that we've learned. And how would you say it's failed you the most, the world of dieting?
Prompt me.
Well, like, you know, saying that it's failed us physically, emotionally, spiritually. How has it failed you physically?
Well, I didn't lose weight. I mean, I did, but I always gained it back. So I'm, where I started.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of like this false promise that once you take it off, you'll keep it off, and they don't talk about like all that would go into being able to do that, right?
Right.
Yeah. How do you think it's failed you emotionally?
Well, it's a constant roller coaster of ups and downs, and I feel good, and I feel like crap, and I feel guilty, and I feel just all over the board. Not healthy emotionally.
Yeah. I have to say, for me, I feel like it's failed me emotionally even more than physically. You know, like it was just putting my brain through the ringer all the time. And then when I think about how it's affected me spiritually, how would you say it's different emotional from spiritual? How's that different for you, or the same?
I don't know. I have a hard time distinguishing those two. Well, actually, the journey that I've been on the past 10 years, which has still involved dieting, but it was like the the ARP and the food support group, those kinds of things, which still involved diets. But spiritually, in the last 10 years, I've grown so much.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how that works. But
Yeah. Well, I'd say definitely the process of going through it really makes you kind of dig deep into what is this all about? Is it really just about losing the weight and what's going on there? Also, for me, I think emotional and spiritual are really closely tied for me, but I think I would tack on maybe like emotional might be what I would talk to anybody at a speaking engagement about. And when I tack on spiritually, I would also add on, how has it affected my relationship with Heavenly Father, Jesus Christ, my testimony. So maybe sometimes in my head, that's maybe a differentiation, but I think it's kind of all, shall we say, circumscribed into one great whole, right? And sometimes it's all connected so you can't unwind them. And so for me, I know dieting affected my spirituality, and that if I was eating according to my diet, I felt good and I felt like I could pray and I could like be on top of things. But as soon as I felt like I was failing at it, that I had binged again or I was out of control, I did not want to talk to Heavenly Father.
Mm-hmm.
I felt very distant, very like I failed again. And for me, it became a morality issue. Either I'm good or I'm bad, right?
Yeah.
I'm on my diet, I'm off my diet, so I'm either good or I'm bad. And so I think in that way, it really fails us spiritually because, I mean, how many times do we know people who feel like they are a bad person and they need to repent because they've screwed up their diet?
Right.
And I think that's important to kind of separate. So I don't know, any additional thoughts on that one?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Well, and then it goes on to talk about how, that intuitive eating is an empowering process. It's that ability to give yourself that power back that the dieting world has kind of taken away. And I love, it says in here, in the second paragraph, it says, becoming an intuitive eater requires a highly conscious decision and commitment. I would agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
And again, that's why these groups may always be small because it is a huge commitment. And it means letting go of the old way of surviving and opening up to a new way of viewing life.
Yeah.
And I think that's what takes the longest and the most amount of patience. So if you think about the last 6 months as kind of a chunk of time, and think about the next 6 months as a chunk of time, what kind of ways of surviving do you think you are still holding on to in our first 6 months together? And which ones do you feel like you're ready to let go of in the next 6 months?
So are you talking about the the diet mentality and the food police and those kinds of things,
Yeah,
or
and coping mechanisms, like what things were you still kind of holding on to the old ways of getting through things? Which ones do you feel like, you know what, I'm ready to really make a renewed commitment for, I'm going to work on these ones?
um, well, I don't ever want to diet again. I think I'm over that. I know that's not the answer.
Yeah. And I think you've been pretty safely committed to that the whole time.
I think I'm doing really well in the moment of not eating when something happens. Like yesterday when I was crying and having a breakdown, I prayed instead of ate,
Wow.
which is huge.
Wow, that's great.
And still really struggling overeating when I'm eating. And I just feel stuck there.
But you feel like you're generally waiting for hunger for that and not for emotion?
No. I don't feel it. I feel like I'm eating whenever I want, whatever I want instead
Okay.
of.
Okay,
eating
so
more meat.
so what you're telling me is that sometimes when you feel negative emotions, you're finding yourself doing better at praying for help and turning to the emotional, spiritual side of things. And other times you feel like, man, I feel like eating, I'm just gonna eat.
Yeah, I think it's more maybe of like maybe a conscious versus subconscious. Like consciously I'm crying, I know what is happening. It's like a danger
Uh,
thing, you know what I mean? And then just throughout my daily life, obviously there's stuff happening, but it's not like right there in front. Like this is what's happening, I'm going to eat. It's just I'm not hungry but I want to eat, and it's not glaring me in the face.
that is really a powerful discovery. That's
Really?
really a powerful discovery. Think about what you just said. When you're very conscious of what the negative emotion is and what it's being caused by, you're doing really well at not turning to food. And when it's unconscious and you're not really sure what's going on till later, then you have a tendency to still turn to the food. So that is a massive amount of progress. I mean, think about that. Think about where you used to be, that when things were really hard and you were frustrated, it was like go right to the food and you
Yeah.
don't care anymore. And
Yeah.
now you do.
Yeah.
And now you do care, and you already know it's not going to work. It's not going to help. I mean, it may distract you for a while, but you know it's not worth it anymore. So
Yeah.
that's huge. When you take that survey, make a note of that, because that is, I mean, that's like a measurable success that you want to pat yourself on the back for. I would celebrate today somehow. Watch your
Okay.
favorite Netflix show or do something fun for yourself, because that's huge.
Okay.
Yeah, that's really huge. So now that means we've just got to get used to the fact. I think almost if you can think of it as a reversal, meaning, so when it's conscious, you have an emotion, you know what's going on, and you're choosing, I choose not to eat right now because I know it won't help. So now what if you take the other ones that are unconscious and you think in reverse, oh, I want to eat right now, but I'm not hungry. I know something's going on. Let me take a minute and figure out what that is. So
Yeah.
if you use that cue that's saying turn to food, turn to food, turn to food, turn to food, to be your engine warning light that says, hey, you're having a negative emotion somewhere. You're having some sort of emotion that's got to be negative because you're trying to cover it up. You're trying to get rid of it.
Okay.
I've been preparing a few speeches for the next month, and I talk a lot about pain can actually be the pathway to peace. And that's what I'm talking about, is that we have these painful experiences in our life that obviously can lead us to do better, get better. But also on a more microscopic level is that, okay, when you have that moment that you've always felt like is a curse, you can actually see it as, oh my gosh, this is a blessing. This is telling me exactly what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So for us, that's that need to eat when you're not hungry. We know something's going on. It may take us a while to figure it out, and we may not even have time to deal with it right then. We might have to wait till tonight or tomorrow or whatever to sit down and figure it out. But even if you make a mental note, I didn't bring it in here. I have a little pink journal that I started carrying around, things like, this big, has an elastic band. And I've just started carrying it with me everywhere. And I'll make a quick note when there's something emotional going on, really quick, like not full out blown journal stuff. Sometimes I'll do journal if I have time. But like, if somebody says something to me and that just irritates me and I know it's the wrong time to talk about it and I know I'm just been put in a bad mood, I'll open my book, say, I'm feeling a lot of resentment right now because so-and-so just said this, and that makes me, and I'll do the IAAA thing. Okay, I feel resentment. Why do I feel that? Because so-and-so just said that. What action is it telling me to take? And I might leave that blank right then if I don't have time to deal with it, right? Or if I have time, then I'll think through and finish that. But now you're at that point of becoming aware that there's something going on, even if you don't know what the something is. That's huge. That's really huge. Look at you.
I don't feel, I don't know.
That's because it happens so minuscule. It happens day by day by day. And
Yeah.
we don't see the big changes. That's why we do a 6-month jump, because you really do have to say, oh man, I wasn't doing that 6 months ago.
Yeah.
right? But the difference between last week and this week can be really hard to determine because the differences are, you know, not as obvious.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's huge.
And I feel like I've been stuck here for a while, so I guess I don't feel like it's, I don't know, just don't feel like I'm getting anywhere with that
Well,
part
if
of
you
it.
think about, if you're looking at them separately, then it can feel like you're stuck there. So if one of the problems was, even when I'm conscious about it, I just eat no matter what. And then here's this problem of I'm eating all the time and I'm not even conscious of why. And you feel like, okay, I worked on this one and I did great. Look how great I'm doing. This one I still suck at.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not separate things. It's all part of the same process. And of course, we're going to be able to deal with the things that are conscious and obvious first, right? That's just obvious.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, but then once you develop the skills of working on things that are obvious, then you get closer and closer to working on the things that are not so obvious. That's just, yeah. It's like telling your kid, well, of course you figured out the obvious math problems first,
Mm-hmm.
or the easier ones first. And now you're just getting into harder math.
Okay.
So now all you're doing is going to the next math class. Right? So it is progress. Just because we still have some of the same symptoms doesn't mean there's not massive progress.
Okay.
Right? Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so at the bottom of that same page and over into the next, they start talking about trade-offs. And I like this, especially for people who are new to the program, because they have to realize, yeah, you're going to be sacrificing things, but what you're going to be getting in return is so much better, right? So I just made a list of some of the things that it says are the trade-offs. It says, like, so the temporary sense of power and control of being on a diet, and that does feel good. Right? It feels awesome when you're on that diet and you see the scale going down and you're measuring and you've prepped all your food and you're like, I'm a champion. I can finally do this. Right. But so you do give up that high that you get from that, but you trade it for this lifelong sense of self-empowerment. Like, I can handle any situation I'm in. I don't have to have somebody else tell me what and how much to eat, So I think that's a good trade for myself. Besides that, for me, it wasn't just the high of dieting, it was also the failure of dieting. So even if I felt high over here, it's like I knew inevitably the crash was coming. And then the excitement of dieting and rebound binging, which is interesting. They say that rebound binging is a positive in our brain. And I feel that because we obviously get a high off of binging or we wouldn't do it. Right. And so there is that feeling of, okay, I can finally do whatever I want.
Yeah.
So we're willing to give up that and that excitement of eating forbidden foods. Like, okay, don't tell me what not to eat. I'll eat whatever I want. So we're giving up all of that for what they say is experiencing other aspects of life. And I really appreciate that because I felt like I spent decades doing nothing but dieting and binging. Like, I was raising kids, I was doing all this stuff, but my brain was so preoccupied.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've wasted a lot of years on that. So, and now I think about it, but it doesn't run my life. I think about, trying to be an intuitive eater and doing all that, but I feel like it enhances my experience of my life rather than distracting from my whole life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any thoughts on that?
I agree. I think it's totally enhancing because we're working on all aspects of our lives and we're not just focusing on food and our body. I mean, we're addressing our emotional needs and our inner selves and our spiritual selves, and it's so eye-opening. It's like,
Yeah.
I wish I would have known this,
Yeah.
30 years ago or whatever.
Oh yeah, it really is. And that's why I really felt strongly about putting together this program, not just doing a intuitive eating thing, because I feel like even the intuitive eating thing, they talk about that you should deal with that, but they don't ever deal with it. They want you to go to a therapist or your spiritual leader, whatever, to deal with that. I just feel like it's so important because they are absolutely tied together 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. And then the other trade that it said was being numb or calm because you're distracted by food or dieting. That's hard to give up, right? but you're trading it for experiencing the richness of life and being highly in tune with all areas of your life. And I think that can be one of the hardest ones for me, at least, because that means I have to experience negative, and I don't want to experience negative.
Yeah.
But I also experience a lot more positive instead of kind of going around in a food coma all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do these trade-offs seem scary in any way to you?
No, I mean, like you said, I don't want to deal with the negative, but I know in the end that I need to, and that it will help me in the long run. And
Yeah.
it might be scary, like talking to Derek, I know I need to do it, but it's a little bit scary, but I know that it's going to help me.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Perfect example, because when you first realize I have to talk to Derek, what happens in your gut?
Oh, scary.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. Right. And so those are the emotions that typically we would be like, and I need a chocolate bar.
Yeah.
But it's amazing how dealing with that and journaling your feelings and being determined to talk to him and actually following through on that, it's amazing how much your whole life gets better.
Yeah.
Like, we can think, okay, well, yes, I didn't eat from it, so the eating part gets better, but also my relationship with my husband gets better, and my self-confidence gets better, and my ability to talk to other people gets better, and I'm not always worried so much about when I have to have a difficult conversation because I've practiced it and I did okay,
Mm-hmm.
or sometimes I don't do okay and then I practice it again and I get better, But it really is a process of lifting your life higher rather than just numbing it in some low place.
Yes.
Where it is. That's well said. I like that. Then they talk about that you're going to learn to live through a place of curiosity. I did not put what page that was, but I really like that. Oh, it's got to be 299.
Yeah, it's like the middle of the page. Third paragraph down.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because, and this is what we were just talking about, that every digression from the food plan becomes an opportunity to become critical of yourself. And I would say make sure that when you use the word critical, that doesn't mean disparaging. It just means actually thinking through what's going on and being highly aware of it. And so in that case, that is the moment where this challenge or this, I don't know if you want to call it an eating disorder or disordered eating or whatever, becomes a blessing. Because if it can be the cue that goes, uh-oh, you have a problem with your husband you have to deal with, then that's a blessing.
Yeah.
If it says, oh man, there's something going on with your kids, or if it says, man, you really should apologize for what you just said. All those things are blessings if we let them be.
Yeah.
And it just so happens that for us, the cue for that is to go eat. For my brother, it's probably to go get a drink. For someone else, it might be to dive into their work a little harder and not think about their family life. For us, it just happens to be food.
Yeah.
So I think that's interesting. So talking about being curious, how can you practice transforming self-judgment into curiosity even more than you have in the last 6 months? What can you do to just kind of foster that sense of, I'm not going to be judgmental about what I'm doing or what's going on. I'm just going to be highly curious.
I think it's just asking questions. Or, this is interesting. Why do I do this? Or why do I feel like I need to eat right now? What,
And why did I just eat? Like, so if you do mess up,
Yeah.
being patient with yourself on, there's no room for criticism. There's just learning.
Yeah.
Right. For me, carrying around that little notebook has been helpful, because something about putting it down on paper is kind of like saying it out loud to someone else. And for some reason, it's very different than thinking it in your own head.
Yes.
It's almost like your own head can think so many things at once that it's just not very clear sometimes.
Yes.
So if I could write it out to myself, okay, why did I just do that? Okay, well, I had an extra cookie at dinner when I was already hungry. Why did I do that? And just thinking through the possibilities, it just becomes a lot more clear for me and is easier for me to be curious. And And also, if I do have some condemning thoughts, like if I suddenly find myself thinking, oh, I know better, why did I do that? It's so stupid. Then I can actually be curious about that too. I can be like, having thoughts of being stupid. Why? And I can even go there if I want to learn from that. But there is something nice about writing it down. Also because we just don't always have time to think through it or write through it right then.
Right.
So I might write, if I'm at somebody else's house and I get in the car to go somewhere else, then I might write 8 extra cookie past hungry and just leave it there until some other time when I feel like thinking back, oh, what did happen for that? But anyway, interesting thoughts on different ways you can be curious.
Yeah. I think that I'm gonna make that my homework this week.
Okay.
I'm gonna write in my notes on my phone.
Oh, that's a good way to do it. I even found a little app that was called Mood. I haven't gotten into using it, but I downloaded it, and it would be a good idea because it just has this place where you quickly put down what your mood was, and then you can put notes in there. And I thought, well, that's not a bad idea, but it's the same thing as using your notes or anything else. Yeah. Just have a chance to put it somewhere quick. So whatever you will use is probably the best thing to use.
Okay. Okay, that's what I'm going to do.
Okay, cool. Cool. All right. And then the last little part that it talks about, one of the benefits, the trade-offs is, excuse me, is it's about, okay, I love this part. I've thought about it a lot this week. Eating is about waiting and learn to be patient.
Yes, I had a big star on that one.
I did too. That was just really a good insight. I loved that her patient was talking about how much waiting is involved in this process. Mm-hmm. And I think that's maybe why it's so hard for me, is because like, I don't want to wait. I don't want to be patient. I want to be fixed now.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, I made a list of the things she mentioned: waiting to eat till you're hungry, waiting while you pause during a meal, sitting with emotions and waiting to feel better. For me, that's a huge one. That's harder because I feel like waiting during eating, there's a payoff for it. There's a physical payoff because I can actually taste my food more. So I feel like that's more enticing to me. But waiting with difficult emotions, I really don't like doing that. And I know there's a payoff at the end, but it feels like a long ways away when I sit down to do it. And then I like what they said, that learning to be more patient is more valuable than all the weight you've ever lost and regained and all the money you've ever spent on failed diets.
Yeah.
And then last one was, learning to wait will free you from the burden of dieting and from a life of which you feel locked, trapped, with no escape. So how do you feel about the concept of waiting?
I feel so. My friend Jamie and I talk about, before we came here, we signed up for all these classes. And so, I signed up for the teenager, hard teenager class, and the mother-in-law with cancer, and the, all these different classes. And I said, I definitely signed up for the patience class because that I have struggled with my whole life. I've just always been so impatient.
Yeah, we often talk about that this is like the university of life, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you think about like really good education systems will integrate. So they'll be teaching math, but they'll be doing it in Spanish. So now people are learning Spanish while they're doing math, and they'll be doing, English, but they'll pull in a math concept that has to do with that. I think, isn't that what God's doing? He's like, okay, you need patience. We'll just put that in every lesson.
Every single one. Yep, exactly.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I really appreciated that. And I appreciated it emotionally too, not just about the food, because, just that feeling of, okay, I am upset right now. Somebody has said something that upset me and I don't think it's fair and I want to take care of it. And I have to remind myself that waiting, just wait, pray, get your feelings down, think through it. Like I said, it wasn't that long ago. It was like a week ago that I did not wait, and I made the situation way worse because I felt like I vent how I felt, and I really did make it that much worse. And this week I've been better at, okay, that doesn't work. Do I want that outcome? Don't want that outcome. Okay, let's just wait. And it's interesting, as I wait, what happens is I still see what they did that I think isn't right, but I now can also see what I did that isn't right, or my beliefs that I have that are kicking in that are not right. So now I can say, oh, I'm thinking black or white again. I'm starting to think of, well, if this happened, then our relationship must be horrible. And,
Yeah.
and I'm starting, so I can start recognizing, oh, okay, here's where my flaws are. Here's what I need to work on. And then suddenly when I come at it and we do have the discussion, but I come at it from my things I need to work on, and I come at it from caring about the other person, then it really does resolve. And then they're open to hearing about the things that I was upset that they did, and it just all goes so much smoother. So for me, patience is just that waiting concept is obviously a powerful one I need to learn.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, really, really good. Really good. So, all right. So I think we could probably quickly look at the common questions, because I think we have talked about all these, right?
Yeah. It's a good review.
Yeah, it is a good review. And I thought it was interesting because to my mind, I was like, why don't they put this at the beginning? Right? Because you have all these questions. By the time you've gotten through the whole book, you had these questions weeks ago.
Yeah.
But I also like that they compared it to the recipe card and said, if I handed you a recipe card for a really difficult meal, you may have the basics of how to do it, but it's not going to turn out great.
Yeah.
Because you don't get it. But I still would like to know, I would like to get your feedback on what you think about, kind of giving people an outline of this, or encouraging them, read the Appendix A.
Yeah.
Before you start, because, we've had someone else join the group who I think didn't have a clear view of what it was about and what was expected and what the program would be. So I think in a way we would really say, read this first.
Yeah.
And if you're on board with that, then join.
Or better yet, they might not even want to buy the book. Maybe you could summarize this the Appendix A and B epilogue. I don't know, and say read this first and then decide if you want to.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I tried to kind of summarize it on the website, but maybe it needs to be done more clearly, because I think it's important. But let's just look over it, see if there's any amens or hallelujahs we want to add, or any insights that we would add for anybody else coming in. When they say, how long will this process take? I appreciated the directness of the answer on here. Because in the book, it's very much avoided. That question's avoided. And here it was like, well, they've seen it take from 2 months to 5 years.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I like concrete answers. Some people, yes. Some people can do it quickly. Some people, like me, take a really long time. I also loved how they say it really depends on how willing you are to put the weight loss on the back burner. Yeah. And I feel like there are parts of that where I thought I was willing to put it on the back burner, but I was still weighing myself. I was still, I was like trying to live in both worlds. Like, I want to lose weight and do all this stuff, but I don't want to be obsessed with weight. And so it's interesting that the more I've been committed to doing it fully, the easier it's become, so I thought that was really good. And how entrenched the voices have been, how long you've been dieting.
Yeah.
In the speeches that I'm preparing, I came up with a theory that I really love, and I'll tell you about it. So have I told you about my love of rocks before?
I don't think so.
I never told you about this. Okay. I have this weird obsession with polished rocks. This one is not very polished. My son brought this home from a trip because they know I like rocks. And so he found that one and brought it to me. But I love those little polished rocks. And I love them because they feel really nice in your hand, right? They're just kind of nice and pretty and smooth. But I also love how to me, they represent people. So you can pick up, a rock. In fact, if I realized I was going to talk about this, I'd bring it in. I have a bag of rocks that you can tumble in a rock tumbler, and then they come out looking gorgeous. But it's fun to show what they look like beforehand. They just look like stupid, ugly rocks, right? You can kind of tell on some of them that there's a pretty color underneath. But if you saw it in the Walmart parking lot, you wouldn't bend over to pick it up, right? And then you see what they look like polished. You're like, well, that's really pretty. And I think people are like that, where the rock didn't change, right? The rock didn't transform inside. It just had its inner beauty more revealed and more revealed. And so I'm in the process of writing a book about embracing the process of change. And that's a lot of what I'm going to be speaking on. And when you talk about like, how long is it going to take to change? Well, think about if you take a rock that has, it's just a raw rock and it hasn't been polished at all, and I throw it in a river, and you say, well, how long is it going to take to turn into this beautiful polished stone? Well, that depends. It depends, first of all, on how hard is the rock, right? Some rocks polish much, much faster because they're soft rocks. Other rocks are hard rocks, and they resist being changed, and it's a lot harder for that water to knock the edges off of them. So it takes a lot longer. So the real first question is, how hard of a rock are you? Right? How resistant to change are you? Is this something you want to do? Is this somebody, is your spouse forcing you to do it? How soft are you? The second thing that will determine whether this rock gets polished or how quickly it gets polished is how hard is the water moving. So when we find ourselves in really placid, calm waters in life, we don't do a lot of changing, right? Just kind of easygoing. Why would we change? Don't rock the boat. But when things are really rough and it's high rapids and life sucks and we're struggling, change is a lot faster. And by the way, a lot more painful because we feel it happening and it's very, very hard. And then the third thing I say is, how long are you willing to stay in the water? Because sometimes we say, oh, I want to change. Let me jump in. And then we get there and we're like, holy crap, this water's cold and it's fast and it's hard and I feel like I'm drowning. And we get out. We're like, I can't do this. I'm getting out. Right? And then we can't change because we're just too afraid to jump in and do the thing. Right? And so when we think about, when people say, how long is this process going to take? Depends. Just keep working on being a soft rock. Keep working on being humble. Keep focusing on why you want to change. Recognize that the fast water is a blessing. The fast water is going to get you changed a lot faster, right? And if I kept that rock in the fast water, after it's been polished, there's like no resistance. That fast water is not going to bother that stone at all because it's got nothing to resist. It's just going to smooth over it, keep moving, right? So as we change, we're still going to have hard things, but they won't feel near as hard to us and they won't be near as painful because we've been changed, right? And then being willing to stay in, right? You are one of the few people I've seen who's been willing to stay in the water. And that's rare. And that's why most people don't change, right? Because they're not willing to stay in the water. So tell me what you're thinking about right now.
There is something I need to talk about, but I just didn't want to.
Okay.
And this was perfect. I am feeling like my heart is hardened lately spiritually, and I feel like it's really hard to explain. I was praying yesterday and I didn't even know what to ask for or how to, what's happening. I feel like spiritually I am going backwards, I guess. I don't know. I feel like I'm not recognizing the spirit. I don't feel like gosh, I just don't even know how to explain it. Like at church, I just feel more hardened. Like before, almost every Sunday, I would be crying during the sacrament just because I would feel the spirit and I'd be thinking about Jesus. And but lately, I feel like I'm hardened for some reason, and I don't know um, why or what's wrong or what happened, or I've never really liked reading the scriptures, and so um, I still don't. So I can't really, there's not really any change
That's
there. But
not different.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, but I feel like um, maybe I'm sure it's since Derek's been called as bishop. I know that that probably has something to do with it, but I don't know why I feel like he is. Um, I don't know what the word is, but like getting more spiritual, and I am getting less. Like we're going apart from each other on the spiritual scale or whatever that is. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
Um,
So you're feeling that distance between you is not just physical, that it's emotional and spiritual as well.
yeah, yeah. We've always been really good at reading scriptures and praying as a family. And last week we did not read one time together, and we prayed a few times, and I didn't really care. And
Mm-hmm.
normally I do, and it's really important to me. And it's kind of a scary place. Like, why don't I even care about that? Why don't I want that to happen? What's happening?
That's kind of scary when you feel like you don't understand what's going on in your own mind, huh? Yeah. Who normally is the person that gathers you guys for prayer and scripture at night?
Um, Probably me.
Okay.
And I think that's become evident this past week. Before I thought it was both of us, but I think it's more me.
I think moms tend to be the ones that do that, and guys are just like, whatever, it's her job. She'll let me know when we're doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, um, there has already been, since he's been called, that you're very aware that there's a feeling of being emotionally separated, right? So it
Yeah.
doesn't surprise me that it extends to all areas, right?
Yeah.
Because when you don't feel connected, it feels very much, it feels black and white. It feels 100%, right? Um, and it also makes sense to me that if you're feeling that way, there's feelings always come after thoughts, always. But again, we're learning to be aware of what the thoughts are. So I'm only going to interject here what my thoughts might be in a situation like that, and they may be completely different from yours. But I can see if Ken were bishop and I felt like we were separated and I wasn't his priority and we were getting that emotional distance, I could see a lot of things going in my head like, well, he cares more about the spirituality of other people in our ward than us. So I'm just not going to gather us for dinner or for prayer, and we'll see if he even notices. Like, I would totally be a martyr. That is like my skill. I am a really good martyr. So there could be some of that going on. Um, there could just be that fear that I'm not as spiritual as he is, and he's going to get tired of me and leave me, because in my little psyche, everything boils down to everybody wants to leave me all the time. So there could be stuff like that going on, and I end up being so anxious about it that I end up kind of trying to prove it, like self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, see how unspiritual I am. I don't even care, you know? Um, so I think it's important that I'm really glad you brought it up, because I think it's really important that you're honest with yourself about, okay, this is what's going on. I am not feeling the spirit this week. And lots of times it's just because we're angry, right? I'm still angry that everybody else is your priority and I'm not. And it's tough to feel the spirit when you're feeling angry, right?
Yeah.
Tough to feel the spirit when you feel angry, when you feel self-pity, all of those things, resentment, they just block the spirit. That's gospel basics, like, right?
Yeah.
And yet we don't want to feel that way. So then we're confused, like, okay, well, if I don't want to feel that way, then how come I'm still feeling that way? But the truth is, it just takes time to work all those things out, right? I don't think you're abnormal in any way, shape, or form. I think it's just you're recognizing another extension of this struggle that you're having with Derek's new calling and being able to communicate and work out all those issues. When you did your journaling last week, were you able to kind of approach this topic? Or did you just talk about how you want him to spend more time with you, or what was your focus in the journaling?
Let's see. I did say I'm trying to work through my thoughts and feelings and figure out where my place is. Trying to work through them. I'm struggling, and I don't know what to do. I didn't say specifically what I'm struggling with.
Okay.
Said I'm worried about our marriage, and I don't feel like we are spending much quality time together. So no, I didn't really.
Okay, so just from what you just said, I mean, here's the topics I've heard, right? When journaling, try to be specific. You worried about your marriage in general because of the time that you're not spending together. That's just a huge, huge hard thing for all wives of bishops, period, right? So the time is an issue. You feel like the spiritual, you're feeling the spiritual distance, you're feeling the emotional distance and the physical distance, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's important that you work out for yourself, why am I feeling that? Is it accurate, right? Is it accurate? Is there really a ton of physical distance, or is it normal physical distance? What needs to be changed? What do I want changed, right? Do I need him home by a certain time? Am I okay with him being gone on these days and these days, but this day is really sacred to me? Is it, what are your needs and what is really going on versus what it feels is going on? Mm-hmm. And then the emotional distance. Is there really emotional distance going on? And if so, what do you think the causes of it are? Is it just coming from you, or is it coming from him? Is it coming from both of you? And kind of think through it. But then you may realize, okay, I need to find out from him if he's feeling this.
Yeah, I kind of don't feel like he even sees that anything's wrong.
Why are guys like that? Why? It's so funny. It's like they don't even, I can be really upset. I can like go sleep in another room, be really mad. And he's just like, oh, well, you said you were okay sleeping down there. So really? You didn't see the tantrum? That was like a tantrum I was throwing. I don't know. They're clueless on emotion. But but there's other times when they'll notice it too, and they just don't know what's going on. They think like you want to be left alone, or if you wanted to talk to me about it, you would talk to me about it. Or
that's how they are.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they're totally like,
yeah,
we'll deal with it if you want to deal with it, and if not, yeah. I'm happy not being yelled at. So and then the physical distance. I think oftentimes, I know that I don't think men notice that as much. I want you to hold my hand. I want to have 5 minutes every night to snuggle and tell you about my day. And I don't usually get it because I don't usually ask for it. And when I do ask for it, I love it. And then sometimes I'll go around resentful because I don't ask for it. I just want him to want it too.
Yeah.
And then I have to remind myself, oh, he's not a girl. Okay. Well, I guess I'm not going to change him that much then. So I have to be good at asking for it, So recognizing that all your feelings are legit, that there are thoughts leading to those feelings. They don't just pop out of the blue. You didn't just suddenly lose your testimony or suddenly have no ability to feel the spirit. You've got some thoughts going on that are painful thoughts. And now it's time to figure out, number one, what are they? Are they true? And what do you need to do about them? Right? It all comes down to that IAAA, right? Oh crap, what's the emotion? All right. Why am I feeling that way? What do I need to do about it? So you're going to get lots of practice.
Yeah.
Right? Right? And I think it's great because my experience with the few friends I've had that have had bishops as husbands, they, like I said, they all went through at least 6 months of, okay, I can't take this anymore. And usually it builds and builds and builds and builds. And then at some point it gets painful enough that and usually for the wife, I know it's painful for the husband and the juggling of things and they get overwhelmed. They don't think of it as being emotionally as difficult, right? And then the wife usually steps in and goes, okay, we got to talk or we're going to have serious problems. And then they have to come together as a couple and say, okay, here's our boundaries. Yes, I won't meet with people except at these days on these times. We'll make sure to go out on our date. Yes, we will be better at having our scripture study. And you have to kind of come together as a couple and figure out, okay, what's not working and what do we need to fix? And I think you're very, very normal.
Okay. I'm
sorry it's so painful though.
Yeah.
And when my husband is bishop, you're going to have to remind me of this someday. I've only had to do bishopric yet, and I'm so grateful.
There should be a support group for wives of bishops.
Yes, seriously, because I think it's definitely a thing. But the nice thing is when you're through this and you've lived through it, then you'll go to the next bishop's wife and say, okay, I'm here for you. This is going to be hard.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because you will have lived through it and know exactly what's happening. But this is all, it doesn't matter which area of our life we're talking about. It's all the same thing, right? Becoming conscious of what's really going on, then dealing with it directly as much as we can, as quick as we can.
Yep.
But you're getting there. Your rock is getting polished.
Yep.
I'll bring in a real pretty one. Usually I have a really pretty one with me.
Okay.
But it's can be painful, but it's worth it.
Yep.
And when you come to me in a week from now and say, oh my gosh, we had the best talk. It was great. And we actually went on a date last night or we whatever, then you're going to be back up here. And that's the other thing I would warn you of. Be careful with the all or nothing thinking, because it's really easy. Like you said last week, you journaled, you felt good, and you had a couple of really good days, right? Mm-hmm. The rest of the week went really well until Sunday hit.
Yep.
Right? So don't discount that it was good from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Okay.
Right? And then obviously Sunday's hard because that's still the pain point of what you're dealing with.
Right.
And just because it's Sunday and it's the Lord's Sabbath and all that stuff doesn't take away the fact that for you guys right now, that happens to be a very hard day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's perfectly normal. But just remember, okay, the other days were good.
Yeah.
And then I crashed. So it's not all bad and things aren't all horrible. But for some reason, this is a big trigger for me right now that I'd really like to work on.
Okay.
Okay, so I have that you're going to commit to really working on journaling, taking some notes, whether it's on your phone or in something else, and really start trying to identify the emotions when they happen and kind of figure out where they're coming from, getting that habit of reversing what you're doing, looking at the need to eat and what it means. Yeah. Instead of waiting for, I have an obvious emotion, here's how I'll handle it, which is awesome. I mean, don't discount in the least that takes a long time to get to, and you've already gotten through that.
Okay.
Ta-da! Cool. So I'm going to see if this crappy computer will let me log into my Constant Contact. I'm hoping if you don't see the video go up online or anything right away, it may be because it's got the slowest processor on the planet. And so if it doesn't load, it already takes me an hour on my really high-tech computer. So if for any reason it doesn't get up there today, you'll know it's because I might be waiting till Wednesday when my computer comes back.
Yeah. Okay.
I will definitely send you the food for thought. And it's going to be about the, just that thought of letting ourselves be polished.
Okay.
Right? In fact, the way I like to say it is that I used to always I would use food to take the edge off my life. And now I realize that I have to let God take the edges off of me.
I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. You're doing good.
Thank you.
I'm proud of you. You okay?
Yep.
Okay. We just keep moving forward and upward, right?
Yep.
All right. Next week, we'll keep looking at like the summary and the last little stuff there.
Okay.
All right. Sounds
All
good.
right. Thank
Talk to you
you.
soon.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.